All right, welcome to the Yanagita podcast show, Troy Hashimoto.
Good to see you, Justin.
Yeah,
thanks for having me back.
Yes, second time, and Troy, we got so many things I wanted to talk about. Like, you know, it's crazy because I feel like our chemistry, I just feel like I can talk to you forever. Like, I was just telling you, we were on the phone just a couple of days ago, and I was like, wait, I gotta save it for the podcast because I want to talk about all the stuff you're doing with the schools, and then you're in the community, and then you're like all over. I saw you in the Bon Dance, and then I'm just like, man, it's because did you go?
No, I seen it on Instagram a couple of times.
Yeah, so our crew went, and then I was like, man, like this is Troy's everywhere, man. You gotta run for governor one day. No, but yeah, welcome to the show, Troy.
Thank you.
So,
it's always a pleasure.
For people kind of curious, if this is the first time hearing about Troy, like, how would you describe yourself? How'd you get into this?
So Troy Hashimoto, I represent Wailuku in the State House of Representatives, and this is I think I'm coming up on 5.5 years being in the legislature. Born and raised here on Maui, and I went to school here, and I used to work at the Maui County Council, and so it's all about public service. It's about taking care of our community. It's making sure that people that I grew up with and the future generations can stay on Maui, because it's like really tough out there, right? It's just like all the people that grew up here like us, we're having a really hard time staying here. And so I think people like me, if we want to see any change, we got to step up and make that change happen.
Dude, I love that. Be the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and that's a good point, because I was just talking to my family about that, about trying to stay here, because there's so many people that'll say like they moved to the mainland or stuff like that, home prices, and behind the scenes, because I'm not too familiar, like is there anything going on that is being worked on?
I think one of the biggest things is really making sure that when you take a look at what you spend the most of your money on, it's every month it's typically either your mortgage or your rent, right? And so and obviously housing here is really expensive, but so if we can somehow figure out how to bring down housing prices, then that's gonna really take a chunk out of people's monthly expenses. But it's a complicated and difficult task, because housing is market driven. Maui and Hawaii is a very, very lucrative place for people to come and buy up. I think a lot of my neighbors are retirees from the mainland, and great, I'm sure they're loving it, but that's not, the housing is not really for them, right? It should be for local folks who really need it, but it is what it is at a certain point. So I think in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're building an adequate supply. Not only in Hawaii, we're not building enough. It's all across the nation, and it's building in areas where you want to have residential areas. It's not having sprawl. It's being concentrated, and it's being smart about where you build. So that's what I've been focusing in at the legislature. I chair the housing committee, and so we just look at all kinds of housing topics. But it's critically important, because I think that's the key for people staying here in Hawaii.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think people can like take the cost of like food and stuff like that, but I think it's you're right, the food, the housing, the rent. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's some affordable housing projects, right? That I see them being built, and there's one by Keahalani.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Bunch,
There's a lot coming up in Central Maui, right?
Yeah,
there's a big affordable rental project coming up across Keahalani Foodland.
Okay.
There's a lot of Hawaiian homelands that will be coming up. So if you go down Honopi'ilani Highway, all that black tarp going up, that's going to be all Hawaiian homelands.
Oh.
So you have to be on the list. But I think that's the good thing about Hawaiian homelands, is that only Hawaiians can live there, so in theory it's local people, so that they'll be the ones that can buy into that. And then we have right across the Maui Tropical Plantation, that's the area of future development. So that is all entitled. They're trying to figure out how to get the subdivision going and get some infrastructure in, so that we can get more local affordable housing. It's going to be a mix. It's going to be some market housing. There's going to be some townhouses, and then of course there'll be some affordability component in there. So a lot of exciting things. I think people get afraid that there's just too much housing, but I think as I said, we are designating areas where we want housing to go, and I think people just need to be aware that's where it's going to happen.
Yeah, I love that. And see, that's the cool thing too, because how old are you, Georgia?
21.
21.
So young.
like for these guys,
We're trying
like,
to build for you, Jordan.
yeah, the 5-10 years, and yeah, that's yeah.
We want you to be a buyer at some point. We don't want you to rent your whole life or have to live at home your whole life, right? We want to give you that opportunity. But so that's what we're working towards, and it's not going to be easy. You're always going to have people, the naysayers who want to keep Maui just the way it is. But I think those of us who grew
is
up
that
here,
the pushback?
yeah, I think the pushback is you want less development, right? But I think part of it is we need balance.
Yeah.
Right. You want to keep the areas that are for the environment, that don't have development. We want to leave that in ag. Mahipono is trying to do a lot of growing, right?
Yeah.
If it's in conservation up in the mountains, you don't want to touch those lands. But I think we need specific areas for housing, just so we can get some people into homes that they can afford.
Yeah, that's true. Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, the pushback. Wow. Troy, one thing is like I just love about Troy is like you're so diverse in so many things. Like I remember at one point, I mean, you're doing stuff with the Nisei Veteran Center. Shout out to Deidra. With the Japan-U.S. Council, with the Obon stuff. You got there's so many things, and then all your projects with like the schools. And can you share a little bit about the recent Wailuku Elementary development? Because that hits home.
Wailuku Elementary, it's an old school, right? But it's it has a good amount of classrooms there, and so I think there's a lot of opportunities for our students right here in our hometown to get a lot of various experiences. And so one of them, the areas statewide that we're trying to focus on is on pre-K.
Pre-K.
Right, so I think studies show that if you can get into school earlier, you can go to make sure that you can get preschool as soon as you can. It truly helps you throughout the course of your life. But I think the problem is a lot of parents have a really hard time of being able to afford preschool.
Makes sense.
Right? So they skip preschool and go straight to kindergarten. And so I think one of the biggest initiatives of the Lieutenant Governor is she has this thing called Ready Keiki Initiative.
Ready Keiki.
And she wants to make sure that all 3- and 4-year-olds have the opportunity for early childhood education. So the ultimate goal is universal pre-K, pre-kindergarten. And we call pre-K because it's, DOE, the Department of Education will be running most of these, right? So preschool, I think, is more on the private side, so we're calling ours the pre-K. And so...
Wait, what is the difference? Pre-K, preschool?
When you hear the term pre-K, that's probably a Department of Education run preschool.
Oh,
right?
I see.
So we try and differentiate it, but we know that we're going to need the private partners as well, because we're not at a point where we can go universal. So it's the Department of Education is going to build some classrooms, and the private sector is going to build some classrooms. And by working together, our hope is that we'll educate most 3- and 4-year-olds. So what we opened at Wailuku Elementary was what we call a pre-K classroom, because it's going to be Department of Education run. It's going to be free. And I think the biggest cost of making sure that we can open more of these classrooms is the renovation cost, right? So we're taking a pre-existing classroom, we're painting it, and we're putting in lower sinks, because these are really little kids.
3-year-olds,
3- and 4-year-olds. And we're also making sure that they have a correct restroom, because they need smaller stalls, smaller toilets. And so that's the biggest cost of the renovation, and of course furniture that meets their needs. And so that's what we did at Wailuku Elementary. And so I think that's the first classroom where there's 2 on Maui, one here in Wailuku, one in Hana.
Oh, Hana.
Yeah, and we have a bunch more in the pipeline, so they're going to start making announcements on other areas that they're starting to select. I think when we were there at the opening, the Wailuku principal was volunteering more classrooms, so I think that's a good thing. I think ultimately, I think they want to get, I think what they said they need to get up to is around 300 or 400 classrooms
300 or 400
to get to take care of all 3 and 4 year olds. So that's a little bit of ways out, but I think you got to start somewhere, and at least we got 11 within the course. So, well, I think you could say 6 months, because the Lieutenant Governor took office, right in December, and she was able to open up this classroom right for this school year. So at least she could get 11 off the ground, and we're lucky that Wailuku was one of them. So very exciting, and I think if you look at Wailuku Elementary, there's going to be a whole lot of construction coming up. We're actually going to be expanding their parking lot. That's something that they've wanted for a really long time. So it'll be a roundabout. In front of their campus.
Yes.
So you'll be able to have an easier time probably dropping off your kids. You don't have to be on the main highway. So that's one aspect we're working on. We're also trying to air condition all of Wailuku Elementary School. That's like a basic thing, and people are like, oh, how come you didn't do it sooner? And I think this is something, because we're starting school in August, you feel now more that it's hot on campuses, and so I think, and of course, we're facing some global warming, and so you're gonna see more sensitivity to temperature. So when Governor Ige was running for re-election, he had this big initiative called Cool Our Schools, right? He wanted to put air conditioning all throughout the state. So those that are in Kahului, all the schools that were in Kahului got funding for that. But then when they were looked at all the Wailuku schools, it was just a few temperatures cooler, so it didn't qualify. So now my goal is to make sure that Wailuku's the first, but then we'll move into Iao, and then we'll move into Baldwin, and hopefully at some point we can air condition all our schools in Wailuku. Pu'ukukui obviously is brand new, so they already have air conditioning, but it's something that we're going to try and work on over the next couple of years. So a lot of cool things happening at Wailuku Elementary.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think that'll take us a little bit of time to digest that, in terms of we got them the funding, and now we just got to actually do it.
Troy, it's amazing, because I noticed a lot of the school things are happening since Lieutenant Governor came in. Was she a former teacher? Is that why?
No, so I think the Lieutenant Governor was very specific in what she wanted to do. So she had ideas of, initiatives that were important. And I think before she left the legislature, she used to run the finance committee, and the finance committee gets to allocate money for the state budget. And I think as she was exiting the legislature, she kind of had a thought maybe she'd be lieutenant governor, so she was putting money aside for various projects, and one of them was pre-K, and so she put $200 million aside for that. And I don't know what would happen if she didn't become the lieutenant governor, but she did. So now she's working through and spending some of that money. So I think that's been very interesting, working with her in that arena. I think the other aspect that we're trying to look at is possibly more teacher housing. And so I think so essentially I think one of the biggest barriers for people wanting to be teachers is, of course, it's affordability, right? And so partly we addressed it through pay. So we are now paying teachers more. We have differentials depending on if you are at a hard to staff school or at a rural school, and so I think, or you're teaching Hawaiian immersion, so we give you a bonus for that. And then we help the middle-aged teachers who over time, because we had a downturn in the economy, they weren't getting the pay raises at a certain point, so we brought their pay up so that hopefully that'll help their retention. And we also brought the starting pay up, but I think the starting pay is probably not enough. So one of the incentives that we want to add in is we want to offer them housing. So that's their next venture into whether we're going to build the housing on campus or close to campus. I think a lot of people are saying maybe close to campus, because I don't know if teachers want to live on campus, right where they teach. But that's the next thing that we're going to experiment with. We have a few locations that we're looking at on Maui that hopefully will get off the ground. We have the money secured now. We just got to find the location and a partner to help us with that.
That's exciting stuff, Troy.
This
is cool.
So I think that's a really good endeavor for us to try and see. We brought in 45 J1 visa teachers from the Philippines this year, because we are having a hard time recruiting teachers. So that's just on Maui. We have 45 J1 visa
That's a
teachers.
lot of research.
That's an
Right, and
opportunity
I
for
think
them.
it's 80 statewide. 45 of them came to Maui.
Maui, 45.
I think
Wow.
there's a few at Baldwin. I think a good chunk in West Maui, but I think
Wow.
hopefully they'll like it.
Yeah.
They speak English really well. I spoke with them,
Oh, wow.
and I think they want to go to schools that fit the type of demographic that they
Makes
that
sense.
they know. So we'll see. I think they've been saying that we just have a shortage of teachers, and maybe this will help us. They're on a 3-year contract, and they can stay up to 5 years.
Up to 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
Interesting things happening, but at least we're trying to move the new needle in that space, and get our local kids educated, right? Make sure they have
Yeah.
qualified teachers.
Like, what is Lieutenant Governor like? Because she seems like just spearheading things. It's like, let's go. Is she like that, or is it more like, oh, what is she like?
Yeah, no, the lieutenant governor
you.
is one of the smartest people that
Yeah,
I know.
I
And
love
she's
it.
very unassuming, but she knows how to navigate, and she is a straight shooter. And I think she has big ambitions. I wouldn't be surprised if she eventually runs for governor. I think she's stated publicly that's her goal. But
That's
she's
awesome.
been on Maui a lot. Like, if you
Yeah.
go around to events, she's always here. And so I think I see her more on Maui now than I've ever seen anyone else ever before. So props to
Wow.
her for making the rounds in the Neighbor Islands. Because sometimes when you get into that office, you forget about there's places more than Oahu, right?
Oh, then Oahu.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So you want them to come out because we have different challenges. It's a different lifestyle here in the Neighbor Islands than the big city, right?
So that's why it's good that like you're in there, from like Maui and from Baldwin. You know what I mean? Like I honestly I wouldn't be surprised like if you ran for something too one day. You know what I mean? Like I would be like, yeah, Troy, that's the guy, bro. Like no, like because I'm telling you, like you're around. I tell people all the time, like I see you pretty much everywhere locally.
We try.
Like
we try.
whether it's like non-profits, charity, events, cultural things, like to all different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does Troy have so much energy to like, and then you were like running and doing a marathon just this year.
Yeah.
So that was a half marathon.
So I did the Maui Marathon.
That was awesome.
I'm training for the
So
Honolulu
much diverse.
Marathon.
Yeah.
We'll see if we actually run it this year. Marathons are a commitment, man.
Running
It's
is
just-
hard.
It's like you
That's
gotta
amazing.
put in the time, and if you don't, you really feel it, on race
Dang.
day. But I think why I really like running is because at some point you just gotta clear your head.
Mm.
Like this morning, I went to the spin class, and I was like, oh, it's too noisy here. It's hard to think, right? So I think running is that space where you can just kind of like figure out, what's you got to do and what's next, and strategize a little bit. But I recommend it for anyone. Whether it's running or just meditating or journaling or whatever, right? I think you gotta figure out how to like organize your thoughts. But I think running for me has been that outlet, and also it's just I've been trying to keep down the weight. That's like that's hard, right?
Yeah. We get so much good food.
I know.
We
It's
get good
like
food, bro.
keeping down the weight is
That's
crazy,
true.
man. It's like a lifelong battle.
Yeah, I feel ya. Like it's amazing because with running, what is like your normal like run look like? Is it like
So I try to like keep it down like at least an hour. Like I try to work out for an hour, so that'll get me maybe 5.5 miles.
that's crazy.
But-
That's just
In a day?
yeah.
and
That's
in a
awesome,
run,
man. Look
so-
at that. Like,
I,
and we're
I-
over here. Jojo just fought.
I-
We're like, oh, 2
I don't
mile
like running.
run and 2 miles. I'm like, bro, you guys are gonna fight.
More
Like,
than one is like good enough.
and you're
for
just
me
cruising
already.
at 5 miles.
Oh.
That's respect, man. Like,
That is, yeah.
but that says a lot. Like one of my mentors would say, like somebody who like works out or does stuff like that, like it says a lot about their character, like the self-control, the mindset, the self-discipline to do stuff. Because some days you're probably like, I don't really, and then you just go out and do it. And
Yeah, it's you gotta condition yourself. It's not
That's
easy.
awesome,
you
man.
just gotta work at it,
how
and
long
it's so
has this
easy.
been? How long has this been? It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been working out for a number of years during the marathons, half marathons, but I think over the last maybe 3 years after the pandemic,
After the pandemic.
I started to watch what I eat, right, and then allowed me
Big
to
transformation.
really get better at running. So
That's awesome.
I think at the end of the day, half the battle is what you eat, actually, right? It's
absolutely.
It's amazing how you can transform your body if you just eat a little better or cut out certain things.
What was the big transformation for you? Because people, they'll see like the pictures together, and people are like, wait, Troy's like amazing. What's going on with Troy?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I should ask him on the podcast. Like, what do you normally eat?
Well, so I think I
routine.
essentially just cut out sugar.
Sugar,
right?
okay.
Sugar and anything that turns into sugar. So a lot of carbs, so minimizing carbs.
Yeah.
And I think really basically why I did it was because I was just feeling sluggish. I think even though I was working out, I still felt sluggish. And I think probably I wasn't sleeping well. And I was about to do a sleeping test, but then I was like, let me go try a few things and see if I can self-medicate. And so, at least once I started to drop, I felt a lot better. And I think now you just gotta, I think the energy's back-ish, but so it's just a matter of, trying to figure out, is there stuff that you can do, like, to eat better or to exercise more or whatever before you do other things, right? Because I think doing like the medical stuff, to me that's the last thing you want.
Last resort, yeah.
It's not easy, and let me tell you, it's like I work at it every single day. So that's why I tell people, like, you just got to keep at it. Like, if it's important to you, you got to keep at it, because, like, still, like, I think it's easy to just go eat some chips or eat some fries, and it like tastes so good, and you get addicted because all that is just so delicious. But you just gotta like say, well, not today.
See, that's why I have so much respect for you, Troy. It's like, because just like your decisions, what you do, what you're, because it would be normal just to be like 50 pounds overweight because you're so busy.
Yeah,
but
I was,
and you, I commend that, because now they were just, you have so much energy. I see you everywhere. I'm like, oh, this guy's popping up here. This guy's here. This guy's there. People will call me. They're like, hey, like da 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 da. I'm like, oh, I just ran into Troy. Da da da. Because then they'll see us. When was the last time? Was it January? In Oahu, we connected.
Oh, I think your 7th anniversary was.
That was March.
Yeah.
So that was
March.
March.
A great party, by the way.
So Troy's always been like supportive, man. I remember like even it was a day before the state shut down.
That's right.
Right?
That's
The 2020.
It was my last public event.
I remember that. Yeah, and I was like, we were actually really lucky because it was a Friday night, and originally we were supposed to do the event on Saturday, but we were shut down.
Right.
And I remember like, oh wow, the choice. And then through the pandemic, like I remember helped us stay open, because we would ask for a bunch of questions about like, rules, regulations, the mask, the 6 feet, or whatever was going on. First 2 months, gyms are shut down, and help us navigate through that. So I know our members. I always tell them, man, like Troy really helped us out in those 2 years.
Yeah, and I have to commend you for working through COVID, man. Like those were some difficult years, but you figured it out. You pivoted, and you're even transforming now. And I think good business people and good trainers and coaches, I think they never stay stagnant, right? They're always trying to figure out what's next and what else that they can do, and I think you do that really well. So I think that's great, and I think hopefully it's just going up from here for you. Hopefully people will start flocking towards gyms, because hopefully they made that same realization I made during the pandemic. Okay, we gotta work out and we gotta become better in terms of our wellness. So hopefully you see some spikes in your membership.
Thank you. Dude, I'm like blushing, man. Like, I lost my train of thought, man. Like, Jojo, you had something you wanted to ask?
Aside from like what's going on today, like what inspired you to become a representative?
I wanted to ask that. Yeah.
Like what inspired you or motivated you to do what you're doing now?
Because you went to what, Maui High?
Yeah, I went to Maui High.
So.
I think I originally got interested in trying to make a difference in high school. I was kind of always a little bit involved, but part of it was because people asked me to get involved, right? And so I was in high school, I was a part of something called the State Student Council, And you know, I was just like a member, but people asked me to say, hey, do you want to represent us on the Hawaii State Board of Education? So that's where I got my start. I was actually a senior in high school, and there's one student member on the State Board of Education, and so during my senior year I served on the State Board of Education with, at the time it was an elected board. Since then, you know, they had furlough Fridays, and then the electorate was like all mad at the board of ed, so then they like abolished the elected board and made it an appointed board, and that's what it is today. It's an appointed board, so it's not as like fun or dynamic as when it was when I was on there, but you know, I got to meet some very interesting community leaders when I served on that, and it really gave me that taste of what it means to be able to make a difference through that elected position. But at the end of the day, right, I would never have been in that position without the encouragement of someone. So that's why I always think about how can I encourage others to get involved, because sometimes it's the power of the ask. And you have to ask someone before they want to do it. And I look at myself now too, and it kind of happens where if someone that won't ask me to do it, sometimes I just won't volunteer. But you know, like if Justin calls, I'll be like, of course, Justin, right? It's all about those relationships. It's all about you know, communicating well. And I think you got to remember, if you want to get something done, sometimes you just gotta ask. Yeah. Some people are afraid to do that, but I think there's true power in that.
All it takes is that one question.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And you know, and I think it's also having good mentors. You know, people that you know you can look up to, you can talk to, you can bounce ideas off of. And so these days, you know, I'm getting a little bit older, and I try to be a good mentor to someone. But I would encourage anyone, if you see someone out in the community that you admire, I think you just need to ask and say, hey, can I pick your brain? And of course, they'll probably say yes, right? I'm always happy to share or help someone that I know through and utilize my network if they're interested, but they gotta ask, right? So kind of interesting, you know, but I think I'm a firm believer, and that's how I got to be where I am, is both mentors and people encouraged me and asking me to step up, and I did, and it's been quite the journey.
I love that. Yeah. Power of the ask, mentors, good people around you. Anybody want to shout out, Troy? Mentors, anything like that, or?
Yeah, you know, over the years, it's just, you know, different parts of my life. I've had a lot of different people, but I think going to high school, I had a really my best friend who was 1 year older than me. And it's amazing that, you know, and I think back, and his name is Bryce Mendez. So he actually lives in DC now. He never came back. He works for the Library of Congress. He's getting his doctorate in some public health, but he's also a Navy reservist, right? So very accomplished. But he's actually, when we were in high school, first generation of, you know, from his family to go to college. And I don't know, it's just you find these people who just think a little bit differently and push, you know, really hard, and he was one of them. And he was the one that really pushed me in high school to do all these different things, right? Because if not, I'd probably just be you know, just a regular high school student and not really get too much involved. But he was the one that encouraged, and he was the one that, you know, was kind of before me, who did some cool things. So he kind of tell me, okay, you're gonna come along with this. And so I'm always grateful for him, you know, being there, because I think my high school experience would have been totally different. But again, it's finding those people that will make you better. And so I think he was a great mentor. And I think so that was high school. I think coming back to local politics, you know, trying to get more involved. I have to shout out my friend Stephanie Ohigashi. You know, she's always been a mentor, you know, in the political realm. She's very connected. So she's always encouraged me to do more, right? Get involved. And so she was very instrumental, actually, in me getting appointed by Governor Ige to the State House. And so I'm always grateful. She was a former state party Democratic chair.
I didn't know that.
And so, you know, she's done some incredible things, and she's always been behind the scenes. But sometimes those are the people that you really want to know, is the behind the scenes people, the connectors, right? And of course, my former boss, Mike White, he just shout out to him. He just retired from the Kanapali Beach Hotel.
Oh.
He was a former council member for 8 years,
Oh, wow.
but went back to Kanapali Beach Hotel, and he just retired after 37 years. They sold the hotel to Outrigger, and so he's now enjoying life. So lucky him.
Dude, see, like this is why like people like Troy. So like very like open. You know, you speak highly of people. I don't know. I think that's why people are like, yeah, dude, we just love Troy, and then and I'm like, yeah, like just from like our conversations, I can tell like it's really yeah, it's different and a refreshing. It's like I don't know how to explain this. I just want to say, bro, hug it. Like, yeah, bro,
Sincere.
you know,
Sincere,
that's
like
the word,
intimate.
Jojo.
Yeah,
Yeah, sincere. That's the word. And yeah, I'm excited. So like, is there anything that you wanted to share? Any announcements or anything like that for the second half of the year?
Yeah, no, I think this next half of the year, there's so much more going on. I think we'll continue to work in the housing space. I think that's a really important space, so we won't let up there. I think we're trying to really work hard with Maui College. You know, I think one of the things that is top of mind is what are students doing now when they graduate from high school? What are the opportunity paths, right? Because I think what really is starting to bother me, and it's always bothered me since I got into office, is that the university system is just very Oahu centric, right? If you want to become a teacher, you want to get a full-blown business degree, you have to go to Oahu, right? You can't do it right here on Maui. It's not easy. You theoretically could, maybe online classes, but you're not going to have that person-to-person experience like they're offering on Oahu. And so I'm trying to figure out how to change that at Maui College, and for them to offer more degrees that the community needs. Right. So of course, one of the things that the community really needs is teachers. Right? We're talking about, we have all these incentives to try and recruit teachers, but why don't we grow our own teachers here? But if you figure out how do you become a teacher, you actually, it's really hard. You have to go to, if you can do it through the university system, but you got to go to Oahu, like, every couple of weeks to complete your program. There's a lot of obstacles. So I essentially am trying to work with the college to say, let's just make a cohort here and let's get some people who live here and take them through the process of getting their teaching degree, right? Because get their bachelor's degree, get their teaching certification, like right out of high school. Let's pick them up and let's educate them.
That's smart.
So that's going to be really important coming up. The other thing that we're working on is, right now you can get your RN degree at Maui College, but that's only a 2-year degrgue. What we really need are 4-year nurses, right? And so I'm trying to get them to bring the Bachelor of Nursing to Maui, and Chancellor Hokoana is on board with this. It's just we got to navigate the system, do that, because we have a nursing shortage here. We have a tremendous amount of traveling nurses coming to Hawaii to work at our hospital, and at the end of the day, I think that's why we had such a long strike at the hospital, is because all those workers are working alongside all these traveling nurses. You can't help but to kind of feel, and they're getting paid way more than you, and you can't help to feel some resentment, right? Yeah. And I think they needed to kind of figure all that out coming out of COVID. They did, but I think what we've been challenging the hospital is to bring down the amount of traveling nurses. But in order to do that, we have to offer more opportunities for our students here on Maui to get that certification. So, there's all these other degrees that probably Maui College can offer, that their enrollment is actually going down, so I want to help them bring that enrollment up. But I think I'm a firm believer that education is a very important pathway to getting more opportunities. So that's one aspect. Of course, we also then have to bring in the other trade unions, because you don't have to go to school to get a really good job here in Maui, but you need to understand what the pathways are to getting a good job, because there's a lot of good jobs like operating engineering, carpentry, right, electrical.
That's true.
But you need to know how to tap into those industries, because everyone's looking for employees. So we just have to figure out how to leverage our high school graduates and to make a winning proposition for them to stay here at Maui, because we're losing too much of them, right? There's just too much brain drain. There's just too many people leaving, and we got to figure out how to reverse that. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm really focused on, and that's kind of top of mind. So I think it's probably top of mind for a lot of people, but just know that we're trying to figure out ways to do something about it.
That's cool, because that speaks right to these two guys, because you're 21, you're in college.
Yeah.
And then Dodi, you're going behind the scenes, going to Manoa.
Awesome.
Actually, this is his last podcast with us on Maui.
Oh, man.
Yeah, shout out Dodi behind the camera. And then Jojo over here is third year in college?
Third, going on to my fourth.
Fourth, yeah.
Fourth year at Maui College?
No, so I did 2 years in Washington. I used to play college basketball up there. And then now I moved back after I got my transfer degree. And then now I'm doing online classes at UH from Maui.
Good.
But that's why I love your idea, Troy, because it's like, you're right. Because if we can figure out like the high school kids and then keep them here, like what you're saying, plumbers, electrician, all the trade jobs which everybody needs, plus nurses, teachers. That's like the root. I love this, Troy. This is
it's
we can talk about this.
Takes a little bit of time, but we gotta plant the seed, right?
How can like an not average person, but how can like we all help? Like anybody just listening to this, how can we like help support you or the cause or your vision?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing is we just need to know what is the need out there, right? Because I think what I've been trying to tell the university is that's your role. The Maui College is you have to take care of the community. It's not you who creates the programs. You have to get the feedback from the community, and you need to help the community fulfill all of the needs that they have, right? And so I think hopefully, if you have something in mind, like I think one of the things that we knew we had to tackle was CDL drivers, because we have bus driver shortages, right? We're cutting off bus service for the kids because we don't have enough bus drivers, and so I think we've been trying to figure out how to do more CDLs. I think we have a need for police officers, so I've been trying to push the university to do things around criminal justice so that they can help people getting into the police academy. But I think understanding that need, right, I think is really important, and then we can figure out how to create a pathway maybe from the high school into the university, and if you don't need a university degree, maybe a pathway to various businesses that need the assistance. But it takes a village, right? It's coming together as a community and trying to figure out how can we solve all these issues that we have.
This is cool, man. Like this is opening my brain. Like, wow.
Yeah, no, like, do you need more fitness people, right?
Yeah, more fitness trainers.
we gotta get those, those students that are like focused in on PE or in athletics,
health world,
right?
The word
in high school, and know that you can be a gym owner and stuff, right? And so it's creating those opportunities. But at the end of the day, it's the people that we need in our schools. So we need really good teachers, right? Because I think they make the big difference, right? We can never place enough importance on how much a person can make a difference in the lives of our students, right? And so I think those are critical, and that's why we try and invest in those
priority.
teachers.
I love that. That's true, because with the pre-K, because did you go to preschool?
No, I didn't. I started in kindergarten at Lee Kai.
Did you go, Troy?
I went to preschool, for 1 year.
Same.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went to Makwa Honganji.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was at Yao preschool, right in the back by the My Medical side.
Nice.
Yeah, but no, I totally agree, because it helps, because English, I couldn't speak English yet, and so all I was speaking was Japanese, and then I remember they were not me, but the parents and teachers were saying that I was mute as a preschool, because I would just not speak, because I don't want to speak Japanese. And so that, I think, really helped me until get English down,
right?
Like in a social situation.
Absolutely.
I think I went 2 years, actually. 3 years old.
Nice.
4 years old. Lee Kai. Wait, do you know, Troy, if Lee Kai, if that was private or public? Because I think when I was 4 years old, from Yao preschool, I went to Lee Kai preschool program.
Okay.
I'm not. should have asked somebody if that was private or
public. I don't know.
private. That's
I know
cool.
the school's public, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know back then what we used
Interesting.
to offer.
Yeah.
I do know we still have some of the public-private partnership preschools that are still
I see.
operating. That's been operating for many years. Like the Head Start program, Maui Economic Opportunity runs those. So those are still going in a lot of places. But yeah, we gotta expand that offering, right, at a low cost.
Dang.
Yeah.
This is cool. Housing, teachers, nurses. Yeah, that's like the infrastructure for, yeah, it's a big one. And then, of course, like the trade jobs.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For someone listening that's for the first time, is there something that you want them to know about Troy Hashimoto? Because we had plenty of conversations,
Yeah,
you know, and so
yeah.
like someone listened to this for 30-40 minutes. Anything you want to like share?
Well, yeah. Well, thanks if you're still listening. Thanks for continuing to listen. But I think I'm here to help. Basically, that's the message. I think, you know, that's the reason why we run for office. That's the reason why we continue to work so hard, is because we want to make some incremental change, right? Because I think it's one thing you get elected, but I think during that time that you're in that space, you want to make sure that you can leave it better than when you came in. And so I think I'm always, me personally, looking at things, trying to figure out, okay, what more can we do? Because, you know, change takes a while, but you gotta put in the framework. You gotta, you know, people before you've done certain things. You gotta move the ball a little bit more when you're in there. Hopefully, the people after you will then continue moving that ball. And so I think I'm always open to hearing what do people think, because I think when I talk to people, they give me ideas that I may not have thought of, or I don't know, like what's really going on in that sector of their world, right? Like, you know, I talk to accountants and they're telling me their perspective, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. I talk to hotel people who are giving me another perspective of, you know, how the tourism industry is going. Talk to teachers, right? And so I think just knowing what the challenges are, what are they, you know, facing. Maybe there's things that we can help through policy, right? Not everything can be addressed through policy, but a lot of times maybe there's things that we can do. We never know, right? And so, you know, I think having that conversation is really important to me. So whether it's an email, or if you see me at Costco or whatever, I'm always willing to have that conversation to keep that open dialogue. Because if you don't keep the pulse, and that's really half my job, is keeping the pulse of what's going on in the community, right? And hearing what people have to say, and that will then can inform your decision. Because we make a lot of decisions, right? At the legislature, we take a lot of votes. And you kind of have, my thing is you have to be a generalist. You have to know a little bit about a lot of things, and we count on people like you. If you know, in the health arena, fitness arena, we would ask you, okay, you need to tell us, you know, if you know, I think if we have to regulate gyms or something, right? We would ask you, do you really need that? And you need to tell me all the pros and cons, right? And so that's what we count on the community to do as well.
See, this is so great. This I really respect you, Troy. Like, you're out, you're connecting, you're hearing things, and you really are like an example, like for the people, man. Like, just like going around different sectors and different, I guess, bubbles of people. You know, whether it's like from we mentioned the Nisei to the dance society, the Japanese dance, to running, to marathon, like all kind of different things, to teachers, to, I mean, man, I can't even like list. I just like, man, Troy is like hustling, bro. He's like, he's on a mission to like serve people. And I think that's why like I want to make this like a twice a year thing. I gotta just call Troy every, be like, hey, what's the next 6 months, Troy?
Let's do it.
You know,
Let's do it.
And I think people enjoy it too, because people see us and they're like, oh, we gotta get Troy back on, and then it's been 2 years. So that's it was 2 years, 2021.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Yeah,
crazy. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Jojo, you want to ask one more question?
Being in the position that you're in, what has been like your toughest challenge, and how did you get through it?
Toughest challenge.
I love that.
Yeah. We have a lot of challenges, but what is the toughest? You know, I think part of it is getting through some of the disappointment of, you know, when you work on issues, you really get passionate about it and you really want it to pass right at the legislature. But you know, you got to put in perspective. Every year there's about 4,000 bills that get introduced, and so I get to introduce an allotment of about 20 to 30 bills, and you know, so you're like, okay, this is the best idea in the world, right? And I think this past year there was a few particular housing bills that I was really pushing, and another year was I was trying to help the police department with this electronic citation bill, which is very convoluted, but it was very important to them. And you push it along and you push it along, and we work through all of the committees, and it goes to the other side of the chamber, which is the Senate, and it gets pushed and it gets through them, and then you go through at the end with you know, you have to then reconciliate the differences between the two chambers in a conference committee, and you work through it, and then you pass it onto the floor for final reading, and then it dies, right? And so those are to me the most disappointing times, because it happened to me twice so far during my 5.5 years, where I got a bill all the way to the end, and then the last day of session it dies, and there's just tremendous disappointment because you worked so hard and you thought it was going to go through, but it's not only because you work so hard, it's because of the people out there who really wanted it, and you couldn't like deliver in some respects, and I get it, like you're not going to get a lot, because at the end of the day we only pass about 250 bills out of the 4,000, right? And so there's a very selective process that happens, and so you got to be really focused and you got to be really deliberate on how you're pushing these bills. But nevertheless, when something dies, there is a sense of disappointment, especially on very important bills, and it's happened to everyone, right? I think the other year there was a vaping bill, because we've been trying to combat vaping in schools, and so they got it all the way to the governor's desk, and then the governor just vetoed it because there was just too many issues in the bill. And so the people that were really working on that vaping issue, some of them were disappointed. I think this past year we came in at a different angle, so instead of banning vaping flavors, because the federal government did some banning of their own, we essentially are just taxing vape at the same rate that we tax tobacco. So hopefully that will, disincentivize people from vaping. I think those who want it will do it anyway. But yeah, they'll have to pay more, and at least we'll get some taxes, and the state will have some revenue for it. So I think that's kind of an interesting one. I think this next session, probably the big issue, I guess I'm going off on another tangent, but this came to mind, and I thought you might be interested, is probably legalizing cannabis will be a hot topic. So last year we really wanted to move in that direction, but I think we essentially said no, not this year, and I think the thought was maybe this coming year. It's a complicated issue. I think a lot of other states have already legalized it, but I think there's a lot of regulatory issues that you have to work through. I think there are parts of Hawaii who still aren't ready for something like that. I think at the end of the day, there are a lot more people who are skeptical about it, so I think we have to put in all the regulations to make sure that it's safe, that we're appropriately taxing it, and I think at the end of the day we just want to get rid of the black market. So because I think if you charge too much, then the black market is gonna be where people go. So that's probably a big issue this year. Last year we took care of the minimum wage. So that minimum wage is going up. I think it's a few dollar, or 50 cents to $1 every year for the next 3 or 4 years. So there'll be increases, but I think it doesn't matter because the market is paying way higher than what the minimum is, just because of the tough job market. But a lot of very interesting issues that will be coming up that we'll have to kind of tackle, and I think we'll just have to see. You never know sometimes what the big issue will be. Probably until the mid-session, and then it starts to get really, really intense.
Wow.
Aside from let's end on a good one. Aside from your hardest challenge, what is the most proudest thing you've done, or looking back, what is something that you can look back and be proud of that you've done for in that position that you've been in?
Yeah, no, I think my proudest accomplishments are all the projects that I'm able to deliver to all of our schools on Maui, whether it's Maui College, whether it's Wailuku, Iao, Baldwin. It's small stuff, right? But in the end, hopefully, as it adds up, it'll be long lasting and it'll outlast someone like me. It'll benefit the next generation, right? You see Baldwin, they're changing out all of their roofing. That was because of our work to get them money to change out all the roofs so the kids don't have to sit in leaky classrooms, right? At some point we'll have the air conditioning installed. At some point Baldwin will get a new PE locker room, and so that's in the works right now in the planning stages. At some point hopefully we'll be able to renovate the Baldwin Auditorium and the band room. I've been working with Mr. Kuraya to see if we can do something for him. And so I think, to me, that's proud moments. Like when we got to open that pre-K classroom that other week, those are really high moments. And I think once you can see it physically, all the hard work is worth it, right? And it'll last for a while. But so we hope to see more of that. It's just we got to work at it and make sure that we see it through the process.
I love that. That was Troy. This is a blast, man. Like, I love when we talk and like the time just like flying. I'm like, whoa! It's almost like 45. Like, whoa! When did the time go? And, I do want to ask on behalf of the audience. So like, if somebody is listening and they're, local family and they're having a hard time, they're struggling. What is maybe like 2 or 3 things that you can say to them that from your view and maybe could help them?
Yeah, well, if you're looking for specific assistance, the government offers a lot of assistance. We know that the pandemic assistance is starting to dry up, right? A lot of the SNAP benefits are starting to go away. There was a bonus for food stamps during the pandemic, and that's going to start going away in October. We know that the rental assistance is no longer available. That was available during the pandemic. So give me a call. Give my office a call, and we can see if what else there is out there, right? Give us a call. Our number is 808-586-9444. That's 808-586-9444. And my staff member who's always there is Ren, and she can try and navigate and help you through some of the state bureaucracy. And we're always happy to help, because I think we know that there's people who need assistance, and we'll try and navigate through that with you. But I think just generally speaking, if you're one of those families who are looking to buy your own home, or trying to figure out if you're gonna stay or move to Las Vegas, I think we're really trying these days to offer more opportunities, right? Especially in the housing space within the next 3 to 5 years, we're hoping there'll be a lot more opportunities right here on Maui. I think just right across from Foodland, they're going to start opening those housing units coming up here. Right. I heard possibly early January, so at least a whole number of rental units that are affordable will be coming online. I think I'm going to be going to a ground blessing for Kahalui Lani. That's more senior housing, but that's right in Kahalui. And so I think hopefully there'll be more options, and we're going to break ground hopefully within the next year in a new, what we're calling the Kahalui Civic Center, which is right across the street from the old Sears at Kaahumanu Mall. There's that big open space where the old MEO used to be, and where the community school for adults is. That's going to be all redeveloped into housing. There, more rentals, and so that's coming in the pipeline as well. So help hopefully is on the way. We know that it's going to be transition from all the pandemic assistance, and so from the state side, we're going to try and do some assistance on our side. But again, we're here to help to try and help people navigate.
Wow, Troy, thank you so much, man. And thank you guys for listening. If you guys want to find Troy, where can they? Is there Instagram, right? That's probably
you can Instagram me.
The thing now.
Rep Troy Hashimoto. Email me rephashimoto@capital.hawaii.gov, or you can go to the Capital website and you can find all the legislators. It's capital.hawaii.gov.
Dang. Troy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Justin.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Catch you in the next episode.